Hi everybody, this is Karen, aka Tilly, in Tilly's Canine Kitchen, and I am joining you today with my little pack. This is Daisy, this is Darwin, and this is Miss Basil. These two are approaching 15 years old, and Basil is 7 months old. As a result of a post I shared the other day, I have had an outpouring of requests to get the recipe for the dog pods that I made for my two older Jack Russells. I am going to try to explain to you how I do it, making it easy, making it fun, and making it nutritious and wonderful for your dogs. These two have been doing my dog pods for about 3 years. Darwin, I'm not sure why you're growling at your daddy, but anyway, they have had tremendous results having the dog pods. It is my own personal choice. I am not telling anyone that you are right or wrong with what you feed your dog. I just know with mine that the result of feeding the best dry dog food I could find and I could afford did not give the results that I wanted in my dogs. This one had major inflammation for years. They both had hot spots on their coats, and she was so inflamed that she had a hard time even running. So we saw almost immediate results in about 30 days by doing this healthy food, this healthy lifestyle, and I hope that maybe with the assistance of your home veterinarian and your cooking that you can have similar results. Allergies were a big issue for every dog I've ever had, and allergies are a big issue for me, so I felt like if I had to remove corn and wheat from my diet, perhaps my dogs were having the same reaction, and in fact, I think the results proved that we were right in that thought. So I'm going to break for a second. I'm going to get the rice on and the chicken cooking, and then I'm going to come back. But we're going to start first with 2 cups of white rice, which is easier for dogs to digest than brown rice, but you can use either. 4 cups of water. We're going to bring it to a boil, and then let it cook for about 20 minutes on the lowest temperature. Gas range, electric range, it makes no difference, but make sure you keep it covered, do not peek. And then when the 20 minutes are up, turn it off, do not open the lid, and let it sit and rest for about 10 minutes. I'm also going to take chicken, rosemary from my garden, and a pinch of salt and get chicken breasts boiling, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about what we put into the pods to make them the perfect food for my pack. All right, we'll be back soon. All right, the rice is on, so we have about 20 minutes and we'll be getting that off. I'm getting ready to put the chicken on, but there are a lot of options. I have no beef with any, or chicken or pork with any dog food manufacturers. I just choose to make pods for my dogs. So you can pick what protein you choose, whatever you want, it's up to you. I like chicken or ground turkey. So what I'm cooking, so I'm making a small batch, is a couple pounds of ground turkey you can saute and then cool it off and keep it on the stove. I'm doing chicken breast. Because I have a lot of food allergies myself, I actually cook the dogs chicken, and then I keep the broth, some for me and some put in their dog pods. So first and foremost, there are a few foods you cannot, if you're making your own stock at home, more than likely you're putting this wonderful, wonderful ingredient in it, fresh garlic. Do not put garlic, onions, or avocado in any of your dog's food. There are a lot of other things that are not safe for dogs to eat, but these are things I feel like people might think, oh, those would be great to put in their dog pods. Do not. Do not put garlic in your broth. What I do is I cook the chicken breast. You want to make sure you have bone in, because that's what makes the wonderful, very nutritious broth. I take rosemary from my garden. I put a couple good healthy stalks in there and a pinch of salt. Not a lot of salt, but it's in the broth. It'll go in the meat. What I do though is I cook this down, let it cool off, take all the fat off. The fat is very dangerous for your dogs. Darwin had a run with pancreatitis. Am I saying that right, Michael? Okay, pancreatitis issues, and we made sure that we remove as much fat as possible. So we'll go over how to separate the broth and get the fat out and just have the healthy broth later. But boil this down, let it sit, and then you're going to end up shredding and chopping up the chicken. And if you do the ground turkey route, make sure you buy the most expensive, well, I don't know that expensive matters, but buy the best turkey you can get. We bought ground turkey once, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. It was awful to even think humans eat it, let alone dogs. And that being said, if I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to feed it to my dogs. So we'll be back. We'll go cook the meat, and the rice will be done, and then we're going to get ready to roast some vegetables. All right, so squash is cut in half. Go ahead and scoop out the seeds and all this good stuff. Excellent food for your compost pile for next year's garden. And I pop holes in the back of these to let the steam escape. Put them in a little bit of water, put them in your oven, and they're good to go. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to dice up your organic vegetables. Oh, Miss Basil would like to help. Let me get her up here, actually. Okay, Miss Basil, come here. I know you're making pods. I don't get them yet. We're gonna let you. I don't generally have my dogs in the kitchen helping me do any kind of cooking, but this is all about pups. So, okay, so I'm using the Russian kale, and so the best way to cut that up is I slice it down the middle, and then I just dice it as fine as possible like this, and then you just want to get it as chopped up as you can. You can put this in the rice mixture raw. I typically just throw it into the pot with all the other vegetables. I go ahead and prep this sweet potato. This is a golden beet, the red beet, and carrots. I cut them in small slices like this, and then put them in my handy dandy chopper. You don't want to know how many of these I have been through. I wish somebody would create a heavy duty one of these that I could chop up my veggies, because I use it so often. And the dogs hate this. Okay, so let me show you how small these get. Okay, so see that? So you can zoom in and see. So you want them as small as you can. I'm going to cook them between 5 and 10 minutes in boiling water, and get these to where you could take the carrot and you can mush it, smash it with your fingers, and that's about the consistency you want it in the dog pods. If you don't cook down your vegetables, I also put in frozen peas. I'm going to tell you all that. If you don't choose to go this route and do fresh vegetables from the garden or from your local market, or in my case, I live in rural America, I don't have access to all the organic vegetables. I can't do pesticides on the vegetables and fruit that I eat because I have an allergy to corn, and corn is in a lot of the pesticides. So I was very fortunate when I found Misfits Market. And if you don't know what that is and you're in America, look it up because it's fantastic. So people like me that live in rural America can get some of the best organic vegetables available, and they deliver to my house every single week. It's fantastic. But if you choose not to do the fresh chop up and have to cook them, you can buy frozen mixed organic vegetables. If you don't choose to go the organic route, you can do regular vegetables frozen and already diced up. That's a great alternative too. I personally like to chop them all up, cook them down, and then mix them all together. So I'm gonna spend about, oh gosh, probably 15, 20 minutes prepping all these vegetables for this small batch of pods. I will be back and I'll show you how we mix it all together. And, oh, what I was gonna tell you is if you don't cook down the vegetables, you will notice, if you happen to notice your dog's bowel movements, you will see whole carrots, whole peas, whole vegetables coming out of their, through their body. They did not actually process the food. So if you cook it down, I feel like they're probably getting more of the nutrients that we are trying to get into their system. So, all right, we'll be back. All right, all the vegetables for this week's pods are completely diced and ready to be blanched, or maybe a little bit beyond blanching. I like to get them a little bit softer than even that. And we have sweet potatoes, both golden and red beets, as well as with carrots in there, and then of course the Russian kale. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and bring that to a boil and then drop those in between 5 to 10 minutes. Check your vegetables, and we are getting very close to assembling our pods. All right, here we are, and everything is ready. We're in the final stretch of making wonderful, yummy, organic dog pods for Daisy and Darwin. Miss Basil's not able to have these completely for her meals yet. I do feed my dogs twice a day. I give them 1 pod in the morning and 1 pod in the evening. And Miss Basil gets her dry, really good puppy dog food right now, but I do take a little sprinkle of the pods and put it on top of hers, just so when the time comes when she's a year old, she is very familiar with the pod, and her body is used to what I'm feeding them anyway. So again, I cannot stress enough, if you are considering doing this with your dogs, make sure you're talking with your family veterinarian about the specific needs of your dog. For Daisy and Darwin, we've been doing this for a few years, and best we can tell, they're doing extremely well, and we'll continue to do this. She'll start at 1 year. So, all right, so let's talk about what we have here. I'm gonna put Miss Basil down, although she may, oh, she's so sleepy. Okay, so let me put her down, and I think Daisy's gonna stay here and assist me. Okay, so here we go. This is the 2 cups of white rice, although you can use brown rice as well. This is 2 cups dried, cooked, and this is what we have. I normally do at least quadruple a batch, but because I'm doing this special batch to show you all, I'm just doing a very small amount of food. But do not smash this rice down. Once you have it cooled a little bit, use a fork, fluff it, and keep it kind of full. I told you she's going to come back and help. Okay, so this is the mashed squash, any squash that you like. It's been cooked, cooled, and just kind of scraped out of the shell. This is approximately 4 cups of the boiled chicken breast. I boil it, remember, with a pinch of salt and fresh rosemary from my garden. Rosemary is an extremely good choice for dogs. It's good for them, it's good for people. So if you end up with rosemary in here, just dice it up, put it in here. The dogs love it. This is approximately 4 cups of the diced, remember we have red beets, golden beets, carrots, and sweet potatoes in here. And I cooked mine today. It cooked in about 8 minutes. But see this right here? See how I'm able to smash it so it's soft enough, but it's not mushy. Okay, you see that? All right, then here are the frozen organic peas. I do like these because they're somewhat soft and they're easy to smash, so I feel like they digest them better than, so they're still soft, kind of soft cooked. And I decided on the Russian kale to dice it really fine today and just keep it raw. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. I'm gonna dump this in. There's your kales in. Your peas are in. And generally, as I said earlier, I do not have the dogs helping me prepare these. Put your diced and a little bit longer than blanched veggies in, your chicken or protein of choice. I'm gonna put Basil down again, or actually I'm gonna just put her right here. Okay, Miss Basil. And then put in your squash. And I did tell you earlier that I was going to share with you how I separated my chicken broth, because you do not want the added fat in there. Remember the good old days, you go out to dinner and you bring home the scraps of fat and leftover steak for your dogs, stuff that you would not have eaten? Well, guess what? We probably shouldn't be feeding it to our dogs. So when I boil the chicken, here's the broth. Can you zoom in and see? Can you see the fat on the top? And there's generally a lot more fat in here. Oh, Basil's down. And what this little gizmo does is it separates the broth. Can you see that? So the oil's here and the clean broth is below. And so I will just put a little bit of broth in. The rest of this I'll put in a mason jar, but when you're pouring it out and the oil gets down to here, discard it. Okay, so we're done with that for now. I just put a little bit, depending how dry or moist your rice is, will determine how much broth you'll either put in or not have to put any in. All right. So, the main problem you're gonna have, I've learned this, you can use a spoon, but honestly, your hands are the best way. Basil really went back up here. Your hands are really the best way to break up any clumps of rice. Can you zoom in on that? So you don't wanna have these clumps, because when you see the size of pod that I make, a hunk of white rice could take up half your pod. So, I've kind of gently mixed this, but now the best, and you're gonna go, some of you are gonna go, oh gross, I don't wanna do that, but probably the best way to mix it is the good old-fashioned way. Get down and dirty, get your hands in there, and just kind of mix it up. You're getting a good picture of that. Okay, so see this? But when you come across a clump of rice like this, I know Basil. Miss Basil says she wants to help. If she only had thumbs, she could. Daisy, you're being really good, and Darwin is just kind of roaming around. He doesn't really like to cook, so we understand. He has other tasks that he enjoys more. Okay, see that right there? There's a clump of white rice. No, Daisy. No, baby girl. Okay. And the other thing is, you're gonna learn this takes a lot of work. So that is why when I make the pods, I know Basil is talking to us down there. When I make it, I like to make as many as I physically can pop out because it does take a lot of time to make this. And hey, don't tell your family. And if you are making this for dogs, it's completely safe. Throw a couple pods on a plate and mash it up and tell them it's a new casserole you're trying. Okay, Basil, sweet girl, I need you to be quiet a minute. Okay, so here we are. This is pretty much all mixed. Can you see this? Make sure on the bottom you don't have just plain rice. Basil does this little chirp when I'm making them. Sounds like a kitten down there because she is really hoping that I will share with her. Okay, so, and also remember, if you are using red beets, just like humans, when you're doing the red beets, remember it's going to affect your dog's urine most probably. So if you end up for a couple days after you start giving them red beets in their pods and you notice their urine is a light pink, that's totally normal. If that's happening, you're not giving them red beets, get to a vet. All right, so now the pod mixture is ready. You get a cookie sheet, and this is where I know this size is the right size for my Jack Russells. So I measure the pod. I don't mash it down, but I press it down. So it's not completely mushing it. So I'm getting the right amount. If I press that down, I can fill it up another half of this cup, but that's too much. So if you mash it down, it's too much. If you just loosely press it in, it's perfect. And then I put it on my cookie sheet like that. All right, you seeing this? I'm going to zoom in and show them the pods right there on the cookie sheet. Okay, so I fill an entire cookie sheet, and then we take this cookie sheet and we put it in the freezer. Oh, I'd say approximately 3 to 4 hours. They freeze, and then I'm going to show you how I package them so I can pull them out 3 days of pods at a time. No more, because I'm convinced if I have them more than that, it's not fresh. Well, it's frozen, so obviously it's not fresh, but it doesn't stay as fresh. 2 to 3 days of pods, defrosting in the fridge is just the right amount in our house. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill this cookie sheet, get these in the freezer, and we'll be right back, and I'll show you how to package your frozen pods. And then, of course, last but not least, feeding the pods to your little furry children who are waiting anxiously. And that's about all I have for right now. I'll be back when they're out of the freezer. All right, here we are to bag up our frozen dog pods. And this is my favorite part because this is when I know that right here, that batch we just made is enough for me to feed the dogs for 5 days. Remember, again, I'm only feeding Daisy and Darwin, so it's 2 pods per dog per day. So here we have 5 days worth. All right, so what I do is I freeze them, get them out of the freezer after a few hours, and mine fit perfectly in these bags, and I try to do 3 days worth of pods in a bag. That's about the right amount of food that I want in my refrigerator defrosted at a time. Any more than 3 days, I feel like it doesn't stay as fresh and as good for the dogs. So my bags fit exactly 3 days worth, and that's what I do. Alrighty, so here we go. So they fit in perfectly. I get as much of the air out as possible, and there you go. So this is how I do it. Then I go ahead and stick these back in our deep freeze and pull them out as I need it every 3 days. But very easy. You guys do approve? Daisy, you approve? Darwin's wandering around, but Daisy and Basil approve, and it's very easy, and I think you can do this. All right. Are you ready for dinner? She's ready. Okay. So we are now at the moment they've been waiting for, and it is how I actually serve my dogs their pods. I told you earlier that I freeze them several days at a time, batches that I pull out every couple days. I don't like to have it in the refrigerator longer than a couple days just because it has meat and the vegetables. I like to keep everything as fresh as possible. I know. Okay, we're going to show them what we do, Daisy, okay? So once a day, they get 1 pump of salmon oil on their food. And then I pour a little water. Oh, if I only had a fork. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just improvise here. We're just going to use this. And then I kind of break it up in there. See if we can zoom in and see what we have here. See that? So it makes a little bit of a soup. Now, I have also put chicken broth in there, and if you're going to use a chicken broth or the beef stock or whatever broth you have, make sure that you are separating that fat out before. This is it. I'm going to tell you right now, she's a fan, Darwin's a fan. Their lives changed within 30 days of going clean, organic food. I suggest you all try it for your dogs, and I hope that you see the success that we have seen. I cannot tell you how many people have sent me messages with very sad stories that were very similar to Daisy's, and we are hoping that you will do this and that you will then get back with me, private message me, and let me know how successful and how your dogs are doing. All right, it's dinner time, and G and Darwin do not want to wait any longer. We'll talk to you soon. All right, Daisy. Hey.